And we are live. Welcome, everybody who is going to join us today, and those who will see in this recording later on Substack or YouTube. I am Dr. Gabriella Kőrösi, and I'm today here with a wonderful friend. And she's just really special. I love her. We had a lot of conversation, and we got introduced to a mutual friend. And this is now, I can say, Dr.Catherine Sidoti. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her recent experience and there's some discussions we had about life and getting our PhDs and finding jobs. So I'm going to give the microphone to you, Catherine, and let's start the conversation.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kőrösi. It's a pleasure to meet you. Unfortunately, under circumstances that we met was through a mutual friend, although he was my coach, Lewis Harrison, who's a really prolific writer. He's written more than 30 books.
Yes.
And he was on Substack as well. And he was my coach for many years, although on and off for the last few years. And unfortunately, he did pass away last year, very unexpectedly, although on some levels it was expected. But last year was also a year where I was finishing up my PhD. I was in a doctoral program with a school called Grand Canyon University, and they have an online program. It took 9 years to finish because I was working full time, and I was also raising 4 dogs at the same time. So it was tough to do all of those things at the same time alone. And it's not always easy to do that, but I did do it and I did finish. And probably the most difficult part of the PhD was finding the participants because
Yes.
participants are hard to find because you can't contaminate the study by coercing them into or bringing them. They have to come of their own volition with their own interest in wanting to be in the study. And even that could even be a confounding in one of the variables. So,
Absolutely. I had a similar experience when I was doing my PhD. It was the difficult thing to do. You would just think everybody's going to jump at this opportunity to be participate in your research, but it's not that way.
no, and the thing is, when you're doing a qualitative study as opposed to a quantitative study, you have to get an hour and a half of their time. So if you're interviewing people for an hour and a half,
Yes.
they have to have the time. Plus, if there's, even though there's a small incentive and you do incentivize for a small amount, that's of no interest to them, especially in the United States when people make a lot of money in the financial field. So I realized that that was one of the difficulties of the PhD. Another difficulty was getting through IRB. IRB is very
Mm.
strict about requirements.
Yes.
I literally went through IRB 4 times. So, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And these reasons are coming up because as we're looking at the workplace and just our whole political environment, there's a lack of ethics going on everywhere. And we know that the reason that we have to go through IRB is because of the Tuskegee experiments that were done in the medical field and the Stanley Milgram and Stanford prison experiments that were done and MK Ultra that was run by the US government. So we know that
Catherine,
those are the
for those of we have a few people who joined. Welcome, Steve and Jeffrey. For those of the people
oh,
who don't know what an IRB is, can you tell them what it is? And
oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that we had people join. Okay.
yes,
The IRB is called the Institutional Review Board. It is the board of ethics which looks at your study and examines the study to see how much risk there is to the participants such that there is a do no harm. So
yes,
my study was minimal risk. I'm just asking questions about how they coach their employees in financial field as a manager who coaches. And what I was examining was managerial coaching within the workplace. And I was looking at 2 different dimensions of culture. One of them was power distance. Power distance, essentially, according to Dr. Gerd Hofstede, who did the research at IBM, is how much does a person accept the hierarchy in any organization, even at home with your family. And then ambiguity, which is called uncertainty avoidance, is the other dimension I looked at because everything is an unknown thing. So
yes,
uncertainty avoidance, for example, my original study, which I had to tweak because I couldn't get the participants, was on Chinese females because I'm examining females and culture. So I'm looking at gender and culture. And in terms of the females, Chinese females or Chinese They have a very high tolerance for ambiguity. But an American has a much lower tolerance for meaning they need to know what the end should be. So
Mhm.
when you work with someone, and that has a lot to do with their family structure, their family constellation, and also how their social environment, work environment, and their political environment. So basically, we got a lot of themes. It was a thematic study, which was qualitative. It's a little different than a quantitative study, which looks at a hypothesis and attempts to reject the null hypothesis. This is very different because and of course, it's on description, so you're scratching the surface. So it's very, very difficult to. It's online on ProQuest. You're welcome to read it. It's 377 pages. It's very long, but you'll see that one of the most important things that came out of that in terms of a theme is affirming the identity of the individual in the workplace of the financial field. When you as a managerial coach affirm the identity of the person, it enables the person to get more of the benefits of coaching because you work within their own structure. You affirm that they're male or female or whatever their background is, and that they bring a certain nuance. That's one of the themes that came up with several of the coaches. So,
That's
yeah.
wonderful. You mentioned that it's available on ProQuest. So if you wouldn't mind, you have access to the chat as well
Oh,
as I
okay,
do.
yeah.
If you wouldn't mind adding the link there so people can access it,
Oh,
and maybe I'll
okay.
also add it to um, under the Substack before we publish it, and we'll add it on the YouTube so you guys
Well,
have
I'll tell you
access
what I
to it.
will do. I'll give you my
Yes,
LinkedIn page because on LinkedIn you could find everything.
that works too. If you just want to add
I'm
that,
gonna give you my LinkedIn link so you can
okay,
look at it. I'll just copy the link there. You could find my everything on there. So
sounds great.
copy, let me just put it here.
And then I just want to say, Richard, thank you so much for joining. Susie, thank you for so much for joining. If you, Richard, thank you for joining from Ottawa. And Catherine, you mind sharing what you joined us from today?
Yes, and so it looks like Richard Hogan. I wonder if that's Dr. Hogan from the Hogan research, because there's the Hogan research that is really important stuff that is
Yeah.
very good for salespeople. But I mean, I'm noticing the people that have joined. So that's pretty much what my study was about. And so we looked at several different themes that are different, but the seminal work came from China, which was on gender and some culture, but they didn't do what I did. They didn't go deeply into the qualitative, which is what I did. There was a very, very large study which was a longitudinal study, which took them about 10 years to finish. My study it took me a while, but the research portion of it took about 2 years. So, meaning getting the approval from IRB and all of that. So essentially, what's important about the study is that because women are emerging into the workforce, and now the latest statistic that I did see is that men and women it's about 50-50 now. Used to be there were more women than there are men, but I think it's almost equal. But women are working in the workforce more in positions of power. In the financial field, particularly in New York, you'll see more women that are working as mid-level or high-level senior vice president, executive vice president, which is even higher. There are very few CEOs who are females, and there are even fewer that come from various different cultures, such as Chinese, Asian, or even European. There are very, very few, particularly in New York, too, where there's a lot of financial organizations. So the importance of the study was that this is one of the gaps in the literature, that even though females are coaching more, they're not being recognized as leaders and pioneers within the mid-level management field in corporations. So
Yes.
coaching in a corporation is very different. A lot of the research that's done is done in nursing, because nursing, and I know Dr. Kőrösi is a nurse, registered nurse.
Yes.
A lot of the research is done in nursing because nurse case managers need to do a lot of work with their team in order to help facilitate patient care more appropriately.
Very
So
true.
it's a lot that
But it's
goes.
still not easy. Even in nursing, it's not easy. Like the
Yeah.
last few jobs that I was trying to do research and trying to do some of that work. Unfortunately, I did not get the support from the upper management to be able to do so. So I did many like qualitative improvements and those type of things, but I didn't have a chance to do a full blown research, which I would have loved to do. But
I
yeah.
mean, what you can do is you can piggyback on current research that's being done and create uh, what I do is spot coaching. I'm a coach and because I have a sales background, I'm able to quickly think on my feet and to create a solution in real time. And
Yes, and I wow for that. We have done that together.
yes, yes, we have done that.
Yes.
Um, so I hope that you took some of that spot coaching that we did in one of those female groups and applied it because it's very, very good for you to do that. It's in your interest to do that. So I say, take my ideas and run with them because that will, and experiment first because not all of them will work. Depends on how you perceive it. And
Of
then it
course.
depends on how you apply it in whatever the circumstances. So, that's coaching is one of it's gotten a bad rap because everybody puts a shingle on there. I'm a coach. I do a life coach because people want to give advice to people.
Yes.
But people get respected when they have credentials, when they've been successful at something, when they've done something and they have a strategy, not just a gimmick or not just, it's a strategy that enables you to go from point A to point B to point C in understanding what some of the psychological situations are that either inhibit you from moving forward and how we can clear those and how some of them are very deep rooted and
Yes.
how by moving through those obstacles, you can get through your goal and objective much more quickly. So that's what the research
Absolutely. Uh,
essentially.
I just want to take a moment to welcome the people who joined, and we are very fortunate today to have Dr. Catherine here with us, and she is talking about coaching and life and different experiences. So please, if you guys have any questions, ask the questions, write it in a message, and also share where are you joining us from. And I'm very grateful that you're here. So if you have any questions relating to talking about or anything else, please check in. And she also posted her LinkedIn profile if you guys want to check it out. And also all this information we post later. Also, thank you so much for being here. So I really appreciate all you do and all your experience. And I know that both you and I talked a little bit about it because we're kind of in a similar shoes of kind of had to leave our jobs and kind of between finding another job. And
Mhm.
just before we came to life here, you were sharing some of the tactics and that you were using. And I know that many of the people are struggling now to find a job or find the next thing or trying to get out of the traditional 9 to 5. So I think it would be appreciated if you give some tips or ideas of what you've been experiencing with that.
Well, first of all, because I've done many different things, I can go the professor route, I can go the business development route, I can go the business consulting route, or even just the coaching route, which is different
Yeah.
from consulting. You have to tailor your resume for each job and then customize your cover letter and send
Absolutely.
in maybe send your transcripts have to go to universities and also maybe letters of recommendations for different jobs that you've had. But it has to be very, very streamlined. When people then look at your LinkedIn page, it has to say information about, and I'm in the process of rewriting my LinkedIn page because
Mhm.
it's got everything in there and I need to edit it more. It needs to be edited. So what seems to be working, what's the advice has been of several experts I've consulted is don't put in more than 10 years of work if you're looking for work. Um,
Mhm.
but if it's relevant work that you've done 15, 25 years ago, you can put in there a small paragraph about that. Put in all
Mhm.
your certifications. A lot of the biggest certifications that have to do with AI, it's good to see that. So if you can take courses on Coursera through
Yes.
AI, that really helps. That's really very useful. I've also consulted with people on that, and that is so AI and cybersecurity are the two top things because those are the areas where there appears to be more work in. Uh, because of the season too, I mean, we're in January and I'm in New York, so New York is very seasonal too when people start to hire. But what some of the headhunters are complaining about, from what I'm hearing, is that there are hundreds of fewer jobs to put people in right now. And
Mhm.
so, but there are many, many, many more people looking for work. So it's making, on some level, their job easier because there are more people, so they could put people in more interviews. But then it's making it harder because they have fewer jobs to put people in. So
Yeah.
that's what's the problem with some of the recruiters and headhunters. Also, because of AI and LinkedIn, people are posting information on LinkedIn that's either a job that does not exist, or
Yes.
the headhunters, yep, the headhunters are not real headhunters. They're piggybacking off of some very experienced career coaches, because that happened to me a couple of times. Also, there are people out of the blue, because if you're open and you live a very personal and if you live a very public life out in the workplace on LinkedIn, you can get an email from some headhunter. And I did. I got an email at 10 o'clock at night from a headhunter saying that they had an interview for me. And then I wound up going to the LinkedIn page, and that person's LinkedIn page said, I am being spammed by someone impersonating me. And so
Yeah.
this happened too. So there is, because of AI, you have to be really careful. So if someone is posting things on the, oh, I thought you'd be really great for this opportunity, they're not going to
Mhm.
say that. The headhunter won't say that. They're
Yeah.
just going to say that. They're actually going to reach out with an email and say, I'd like to talk to you about a position. And it's going to be worded very differently. Then you have
Mhm.
to look at their language, even though people are using ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, all of the different AI tools, and you can change that. You read very carefully how they're writing it. If their English isn't really, well, I'm in the United States, uh,
Yes.
and English is my first. I can tell whether it's being written by someone whose English is not their second language. So you have to be careful
Absolutely.
with that. You have to be really careful. So that's been my experience. It's taking a lot long. I mean, I am one of the people, I've gotten jobs for people. I've gotten raises for people, and I've gotten all my own jobs, except one or two where I was referred by someone who knew me for a really long time. Now it's taking a little bit longer. So I encourage people to call their old bosses, because I may be getting something through an old boss right now. I'm having
Mhm.
another meeting this week. I even called a boss of mine that I had worked with a very long time ago, and she remembered me. And she said, I don't have anything right now. She said, but I'll consider you for the future. I will be in touch. So maybe there's nothing right now, but she is a director in that particular area. She's uh, a decision maker. So she might
Mhm.
be willing to help. So the thing is, what you need to do is you need to let everybody know that you're looking for work. Or for those of us that have a lot of experience and have a lot of education, we already have a job. We can market ourselves in many different ways. So it's not like we're giving away a lot of our information for free, and we're helping people. And that is really our job. You just have to charge people for it. And you have to know how much you have to give before you say, well, if you'd like to work with me, I'm a I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, my rate is such and such per hour. And we can see how we can do one or two, because when you do consultation for a few minutes, you have a 15 to 30-minute free consultation. Also post an ad on specific websites, and let them know that you're a consultant. You can give 15 minute free consultation to find out what the problem is. Once you find that out, then you can say, I can help you in this specific way. And for this package, I can work with you until you get such and such. So for me, I've been very successful at getting people what they want, because I am a salesperson. So I know, when I ask somebody, I said, well, what is it exactly that you want? I need a job. Okay. So I tell them, this is what we're going to have to do in order for you to get a job. You have to coach with me. This is how much it costs. You have to practice your interview technique. Then you have to rewrite your resume and the cover letter, and it has to be rewritten for every single job that you apply for. You have to be flexible, and you have to do research on every company. Who's the CEO? If it's a small company, I got a job for somebody when I was doing executive function coaching which is coaching people that have a lot of problems with ADHD, dyslexia, and also are on the autism spectrum. He wanted a job at a nonprofit that dealt with cancer research.
Mhm.
And we couldn't get the first one because they didn't have any jobs. So I said, so let's brainstorm with some other company. He says, oh, there's another company. I would love to work for them. So we worked through practicing the interviews, rewriting the resume, and then I would record her, and then I would tell her what she was doing. I said, now research the CEO, find out something about a CEO that can help you. She wound up getting the job, and she's still there. It's 5 years
Oh,
because
that's wonderful.
that's her dream. That was her dream job. I'll give another example. I used to be a classical music artist manager, and I had a conductor that wanted to hire one of my singers. And I said, well, he wasn't really sure. He had other singers. So I said, when you come into New York, let me know. I'll take you to lunch. That's another thing to do. Took him to lunch. He happened to be a lawyer also, because everybody in classical music seems to have another career because it's such a hard field. So
Mhm.
I sat down there with him, and he happened to tell me while we were talking that he was undergoing knee surgery. And he told me very specifically about what the knee surgery was. So this is a while ago. So it's not the era of AI right now. But anyway, I took him to lunch, and I had 5 articles on post-operative recovery of knee surgery. And I then gave him 1 or 2 contacts if he was looking to get surgery done or recovery done from anything here in New York. Just gave him some information. I wind up getting that offer from my artist for the job because I did all of that extra work.
Yeah.
So what he wanted for the artist, I
Go
also more personally about him because he had mentioned
Yes.
that. I didn't listen carefully that he had been going through postoperative knee surgery, and he was very thankful that I did the research because he realized I thought about him.
Yes.
I mean, he was a
And
lawyer. It was business too, but
and that's like, I think, one of the key points. It's just like listening to people. I think that's very important. And also the thoughtfulness, the kindness, taking that extra step, go do that extra mile, because that just shows your character as a
yeah,
person, that you do care, that you're willing to do whatever needs to be done to
yeah,
support that person. And even without the job interview, even if that would not have happened down the line, he's going to remember that you were the person who brought him all that information when he needed it, all that extra support, because you listened, you cared. So I think that is
mhm,
super important. And I really appreciate all you're saying, all your support through the coaching and all the examples. I would like to ask, because you and I did talk about this a little bit, difficulties as we get older
mhm.
to potentially get a job.
Well, one thing that you do have to do is leave your photo out of the resume. Don't put a photo in. And I mean, I've had interviews where somebody interviewed, and this was not even, these were 1099 positions. I can see the person interviewing me was about 25, 30 years old,
Mhm.
very, very young. And then all of a sudden, when you could see this minute they saw me, they knew, oh, here, I'm talking to my grandmother or mother. There's really nothing you can do about that. The only thing you can do is when you do speak to somebody like that is to keep up with what they're saying, try to talk a little bit more quickly if you can.
Mhm.
And there's something to also be said about, I'm going to go back to something that's really fundamental, and that's health and nutrition.
Mhm.
If you are not taking care of yourself, you will appear older, okay, in an interview. That means if you have to talk as eloquently as you possibly can, you have to almost mirror the other person's speech to show that you not only can, in my case, it's selling because I'm a business developer. So if I'm up against really, really young people, then they're going to say, well, this person doesn't know technology. They don't know AI. If you start showing them, I just got, I'm certified in AI. I'm certified in cybersecurity. I know more advanced models of the latest CRMs, HubSpot and Salesforce, those kinds of things. They'll start listening to you. You
Mhm.
also have to come off because I've been in some workshops on older people in the workplace.
Mhm.
The issue is if you're too young, you're not gonna get the job either. If you're too old, you're not gonna necessarily get the job. there's certain areas where jobs are much easier. For example, in healthcare, if you're a medical doctor or a nurse, just by virtue of the licensure and the credential, you will, if there are enough jobs, especially in New York, you will pretty much get the job. But in other areas where there's softer skills to be utilized, if you show that when you're in an interview, you can handle their objection. So, I mean, if someone says to me, so tell me about yourself, you can also, you can say, well, I come from New York City. I have a go-to mental attitude. I'm a business developer. I've sold blah, blah, blah. You can go into numbers. In my particular experience, I tell them numbers. I say increased revenue 20% or reduced expenses by 45% from Q2 to Q3. That's what you have to put into your verbal. But it's good to have a 2-minute elevator speech. Other things that are good to do is when you're in networking, you have to know how to work the room. Working
Mm-hmm.
means having your business cards. Now, I mean, I was in a meeting in Manhattan, a very, very big financial meeting with very, very big business people. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, here's my card. They said, oh, just look me up on LinkedIn. So now you don't necessarily even have to have a card,
Yeah.
but it's better to do that because what happens, you give them a card, unless they throw it out, they're taking their stuff out of their wallet for that evening and your card pops out and they may
Mm-hmm.
call you. I've had that experience, but I also take cards. I take their information and I follow up and I set what's called a virtual coffee. I had a virtual coffee meeting with somebody. And it's because I approached her. She was really someone that you can approach easily. She started her own business in the financial field. She bought the franchise. And I wanted to know more about what she was doing. I might be interested in doing what she's doing. And
Yeah.
then she told me how hard it was to get sales. So I told her exactly what to do in order to close more business. And by the end of our virtual coffee, she had a smile on her face. So I'm going to follow up with her to see if
Mm-hmm.
she wants to coach with me because I know everything that I told her is going to help her because, again, she's from another country. Again, English is not her first language. She may not have been taught consultative selling. I was trained in all of this. So
Mm-hmm.
I gave her my information. I went through it
Yes.
twice, so she understood it. So a lot of the things that you can do too is as an older person, I go back to health and nutrition because if you don't have the energy that a 25-year-old has, as someone who's 45, 55, and getting over 60, they're going to notice that you don't have that kind of energy. But if you have the kind of energy because you're taking care of yourself, you're working out, you're eating well, you're drinking your water, you're taking your vitamins, they're going to see, oh, because there's a lot of negativity associated with aging. It's acceptable in other countries, but in the United States, it's not as acceptable to age. We look at youth and beauty as the eternal, that especially for men when they get through a midlife crisis. You notice a lot of people that their wives are really gorgeous, their 40s and 50s, but now, like for example, like that one musician who's married to Nicole Kidman, he just divorced her for a woman who's about half his age. So we're very visually, especially men are very visually oriented. So you can be an older person, but if you really, really have your suit tailored, your speaking is really great, you have a smile on your face, you're working on yourself. And this is a lot of the work it's not just these few things, it goes in a lot deeper than that. And it takes some
Yeah.
doing
Of
to
course.
get to
Yeah.
this level. You can do it and you will get work. And I've always gotten work even through a little right now it is a little bit of a challenge more because we do have AI and people are going through the filters. Um,
Yes.
but there's also jobs that you don't want to get. There's some jobs out there that are so unattractive. Like, why would I want to work for that company? If you see a company that is for the experimentation of animals, why would you want to
Yes.
work for a company like that? Or a
Or
company
even
develop
even with the even with the AI, because I seen, and I've been approached by a lot of people to train AI, and I just don't feel like that's something I want to do because it's not close to my heart. I have the ideas like if I might want to work in regarding to nature or writing or research or a job where I would like to travel. So, like you have an idea kind of about what kind of things you might want to do. And as you're saying, there are some things out there that you might just not want to do too. So it's kind of good to X those out as two. And earlier you were mentioning that you got some kind of hacking emails of, like that were not clear. I got some of those too. Like the most recent one was that somebody sent me an email saying that, oh, we were following your books and, we have this movie company and, and then you were reading. And I had a friend, Gabriella, who I published a recent book with. I had her read it too. And she said, no, this is AI. And, I did a few back and forth just to kind of see. And yeah, the same thing that you were mentioning earlier, the language was just different. It was just not right. So I ended up blocking and reporting and all those things, but I kind of wanted to see a little bit how the conversation would go. And each email they sent, it was just more and more clear that this is not an actual human person. This is AI bot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And you may just want to hang. I mean, if you get a phone call from somebody and you can see, I'm getting them at home too. I'm getting them at home and at work for different things. Just hang up or just block the number and you're done with it.
Yeah.
But if you're really looking for if it's a work opportunity, research the company, and you can even put in the AI with Copilot, is this a scam company or not? Reddit usually tells you too, because you'll get comments from
Yeah.
Reddit or you'll get it from that place will give you a lot. So
I
just
love that.
so
Ask
just
AI if this is AI or something.
yeah, this is an AI. If this is an AI scam, you can actually do it with your own. I don't use ChatGPT that much, but I use Perplexity a lot. That's the one that I seem to use. But there's Copilot, which works really well. Gemini, Claude. There's all of these different companies. So for me, that's what I do. But getting back to the job market, there are a lot of jobs out there. Some of them maybe are not right for you. And I think as an older person, the advantage that you do have is that you know what you don't want also. You know what you do want. If you're
Yeah,
interested in working in nature, you're not going to take a job at Dow Chemical because
totally.
it's not going to be something that unless there's a job out there in nature with Dow Chemical where they're looking to increase their footprint for the environment, then you have to know a little bit more. So do a little bit of investigation and then do that.
Absolutely.
Um, so there's a lot of ways that you can navigate the world of work. As someone who's worked in many different industries, I've worked in more than 25 industries in my lifetime, from the arts to advertising to working in the classical music field to working in software and also in the dentistry field. I've worked in so many different aspects of work as a business developer, but also as a coach and consultant. I can tell you the one common thread is to master your art of learning to work with people and communicate. The listening, the act of listening, the communication. And when you do I'm going to go into this now, is working the room. This is something that our mutual friend Lewis is very good at, working the
Yes,
room. Okay. When you do work the room, you have to have your business cards with you. Although that's not the main reason you want to learn about other people. You want to do what's called your 2-minute elevator pitch. And you don't want to invade their personal space. You also have to pay attention to the body language of knowing who is going to receive you and who isn't, and then come up with your 2-minute elevator speech. In a nutshell, tell them who you are and what you do. And if you do that and you see they're giving you the space, I think as human beings, we can feel that. And if you have
yes,
more experience, you're going to know how to do that. Because when I've done this, I got a millennial client that was looking to get a raise at one of the NBC broadcasting stations. And I coached him and he got that raise.
that's
Okay.
fine.
And yeah, I mean, he got that raise. And I met him. It was really dark. And you have to see what the room is about. how you approach the person, stepping back, smiling. Sometimes you just don't, or if you see someone is so, I call it the constipated grin face, you may want to smile to see if you can change their state. You just smile at
Absolutely.
them kind of thing to change it. So
A
these are,
smile, I agree. A smile can go a long way. Just that simple thing of smile at somebody and say hi. And I would also want to say that first, go without an agenda, but be ready to do that 2 minute if the opportunity comes up.
Mhm.
And I think it's important, as you say, to read the people, because if they're just not receptive, then there's no point to do something like that. They might actually need somebody who just listens to them, and an opportunity might come up later.
Right. And you don't want it to be a psychotherapeutic situation where they're starting to tell
Yeah.
you about what's going on in their family life. But what you might want to do is if you yourself are not in that state, you can practice a couple of things.
Yes.
Louise Hay, who's somebody who is a big pioneer in Hay House publishing, she would say, open your arms up like this to embrace more of the planet, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And then there's a research that was done at Harvard with Amy Cuddy. I won. And you smile. When you do that it actually changes your physiology. When that changes your physiology, the physiology also changes the psychology of who you are. And all of a sudden, and this is something that needs to be practiced by a lot of people that are doing a lot of business development, or if you're trying to sell yourself into any kind of job. And this is also some of the work that's the mental work is the Dr. Cialdini. So I'm mentioning some of the people whose work's been done in this field on influence. It's what you say, how you say it. If you see somebody in your space is talking like this and says, I really am not sure what we're going to be. You don't want to start talking like this and go run. You're not going to do that. You have to learn how to mirror people, how to mirror them in a way that's authentic without being a phony, because people read phony. I'm from New York, so we read phony very well here. And, we're considered very blunt here in New York, but it's more truthful than if you're maybe in California where it's, oh, hi there, you look so great. Where you can't work out at a gym unless you're a size 0. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? If you're a size 16 and you want to work out at Planet Fitness in New York, they'll take your money for that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just an
Yeah.
example. So what you really, really want to do is you have to know how to be authentic with the person.
Yeah.
Even if you're nervous about go into the bathroom first, practice some of these poses,
Yes.
bracing. There's a couple of different things you can do and smile. It will change your physiology.
Yes.
And research backed by this, a lot of psychological research backed by this. And it really helps when you have to work the room and go from person to person. If somebody rejects you, I mean, this is something that's taught in sales. Great.
Mhm.
I'm one step closer to getting my new opportunity. When somebody rejects you,
Absolutely.
that's great. I'm so great. I got rid of the weeds so I can go to the chaff, kind of thing. You don't want to, of course, call somebody a weed, but sometimes when there's no opportunity here. There's no opportunity here. I mean, some of the meetings I've been to in New York in the financial industry, there's so many things, so many opportunities, and they're so lucrative. Like, where do I even start, kind of thing?
Mhm.
And is it something that I even want to do? Is this something that really even interests
Exactly.
me? So when you might want to do what's called an informational discovery meeting with someone. Say, can we have a virtual? For example, I just got my IO in psychology. And there's somebody that reached out to me on my doctoral network of alumni. So I said, would you be willing to talk with me since we're both in the same field? So how we can help each other. If you go in there with that, I got the appointment for next week for this meeting virtually because he's in another state. Instead of saying, oh, I'm contacting you to see how you can help me. People don't care about how you can help them. They want to know what you can do for them first. If you can always do something for someone else first, they're much more open to saying, well, oh, this person's willing to help. Maybe I can do something for them. Not like you're inflicting guilt on them, but you're creating a space to reciprocate or maybe even collaborate for the future. So, and you don't know what comes up until you start to have these conversations and
Absolutely.
create opportunities. So,
I love that. I want to
yeah,
say I love that because I love collaborating and building community and all that support for each other because I think we are stronger together. I mean, there's only so much one person can do, but when you have just like what we did, I started a little woman group and I really appreciated
yes,
you joining and a few other people joining
yes,
because then we can have a group discussion, a group conversation and see how we support each other and we see examples from our lives. And the same here with this Substack group. And I appreciate all the people. We had 11 people so far who joined us, listening to this conversation. And hopefully many more people will listen to it later as well. But it's just when you're in a group situation or even just connect with another person, there's more ideas, there's more support for each other. And but I also wanted to say that when you were earlier mentioning how people greet each other and all these kind of things, it was really weird for me when I moved to the US that people say, "How are you?" and walk away. Like because in Hungarian culture, if you ask, "Well, how are you?" Hogy vagy in Hungarian, you actually stop and you talk to the person. So when I moved to the US and people say, "Hi, how are you?" and they walked away, I didn't understand what's
Ah,
happening.
oh,
And
that,
then sometimes later, I specifically challenged it by saying, "Well, actually," and then they were like, "Oh my God, I actually have to stop and listen to this person." So I did a lot of experiments with it, and it was interesting to see who was receptive to actually have a conversation and who was like, "Oh," got like totally shocked and say, "I'm sorry, I have a meeting." But then they kind of learned later, maybe just say hi and not ask because I have done that experience. Um, I do
well, there's
you
some ways you
mentioned
can handle that. Let me give you some
yeah,
suggestions, and you can take whatever works.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
you can say, "Hi, my name is Dr. Gabriella Kőrösi, and I'm here. This is my first time here. So, what's your name, by the way?" You can do it in a very nondescript, casual way, or you can work on your elevator pitch. "Oh, hi, my name is Dr. Gabriella Kőrösi. I'm actually a registered nurse with a PhD. However, I actually happen to be an artist, a poet, and I actually have my own Substack, and I have a website that's called Dancing Elements where I interview quite a number of people. And I just wanted to know what it is that you do. Tell me,
yeah. I
how you
love that.
doing? You can do tell me how you're doing. Or and then you can follow up with, what projects are you working on? Rather than saying, are you working on any new projects? That's a close-ended question.
Yeah,
You just say, oh, no, I'm not. But if you say, tell me, what projects are you currently working on?
yeah,
What have you worked on in the past that brings you, or it may not bring me? Oh, those are good. And they'll say, oh, that's a very good question. If you ask it that way, they'll start saying, that's a very good question. It's getting me to think about. So it's changing your questions.
yeah.
You want to do the how and the why questions because those
Of
bring a
course.
dialogue. When it's a closed-ended question that's a yes or no, that just that does sometimes you can get a dialogue going, but it doesn't
Yeah,
always.
but not much conversation. Yeah,
And the more you practice being with people, the easier it becomes. And you can also remind yourself that maybe they're also having problems meeting people too. It's not just you.
yeah, yeah.
It's
No, I mean, I don't have any problem meeting people,
yeah. Okay.
but
Yeah.
um, these were like colleagues and
Yeah.
people like I was going to school and then they were asking questions, but then not waiting for the answer, just walking by. And that was totally different for me
Yeah. They really
culturally,
deepen that. Yeah.
so that was kind of interesting. But I think what you were saying, a lot of people might have problem with that kind of creating that connection. And especially today in this world with the AI and with continuously being on a phone and a computer, there's people who just don't communicate anymore with each other. So I think those skills, what you were mentioning, are essential. So
Well, for different age groups, I mean, I have some relatives who are in that age group of young generation Y, Z. Now it's become a more silent, nonverbal because they're texting each other and they
yes,
communicate via text. All right, text me. And well, that's a very good way to communicate. I'm not going to lie. It does help out for even those of us who are Generation X and older. Um, I think some people find that it's maybe a waste of time if they're communicating verbally. I mean, but a verbal communication is how you build relationship. You can't build relationship through text. I mean, it doesn't because there's a
Absolutely.
lot of miscommunication. And I'll give an example. I remember once you do the online dating and you say something in a text message and they completely misunderstand what you're saying. And that's not what I meant, but they are convinced that what you said was something else from what you said. And all of a sudden, it starts to become some kind of a text argument that you didn't even initiate. I mean,
Mhm,
so if someone came to you and they said, "Hi, how are you?" and they walked, it's their uncomfortability with you. It's not something that you did. So
mhm,
that's also a clue to you. That's not somebody I wanna deal with anyway, maybe.
mhm.
Or if it's somebody you need to work with them on some level, you can say, "I'm sorry, I know you had to walk away, but I just wanted to mention that there are a couple of things I'd like to talk with you about if you have a few moments. I'd
Okay.
love to learn more about you." You know, the more you get interested in other people, the more they'll be interested in why you're interested in them. And then once you have a conversation, they'll say, "Oh, this person is not such a creep. Maybe I'll give them a chance," because you don't know what's going on in somebody's mind really
Yeah,
until,
no, we are
you know,
not there yet in telepathy and mind reading,
body
but it
language helps, but we can't always know. I mean, and we can study, and I study body language also quite a bit,
Mhm.
work with people on this. But sometimes your own intuition helps you more as to
Yes,
whether this is somebody that you really, really want to work with. So when you bottom line is when you work on yourself a lot and you become the best version of who you are, then you bring the best of yourself out onto the planet and you get what mirrors back to you. This is a little of the Louise Hay work, the
yes.
universe is like, she'll say, the universe is always listening to everything you're saying. Are you saying I want more flowers or are you saying I want more weeds? You'll either get the flowers, you might get both, but are you choosing to stay more with the flowers or are you choosing more to stay with the weeds? So that comes to, are you making the best choices for yourself? So this happens with a lot of social situations when people do a lot of drinking, a lot of alcohol
Mhm.
gets, that makes people very, just a little bit weird, at times. And it doesn't help necessarily to bring people a little bit more close. That's another conversation. But anyway,
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
kind of what, getting back to the point here and going back to finding work and how to navigate the workplace. It's a strategy and it's a day to day, and being up for, okay, whatever happens, okay, this isn't something happened that didn't go in my direction. I move on to the next thing. Getting up and brushing yourself off and moving on to the next thing is one of the best things that you can do to keep the progress moving forward. Because right, and that's part of sales also. You have to keep doing it because sales is very, very difficult. It's becoming more complex as time goes on. People have a
Yeah.
lot of choices and they're much less willing to tell you what they're going to do now verbally because they can just not bother with you and text
Mhm.
you, "Oh, we decided to work with somebody else," kind of thing. And if you
Yeah.
ask them why, they may not be ever interested in. But if you can make a compelling enough case for why they should work with you, and verbally, and also do that in a text form, do it very, very to the point, you land more sales doing that than less sales. So that's kind of what it's about a little bit in a nutshell.
That is great. Thank you so much for sharing all the wealth of your knowledge. I really appreciate it. And we mentioned a few times, a dear friend, Lewis
Yes.
Harrison. So, Lewis was both of our friends, and you coached with him, and
Yes.
as well for a long time. And he found one of your first jobs for you, and those type of things.
Yes.
And I just want to say that you can make an impact on people's life when you care about them so deeply that even when you're gone or if you're not there, they are there. Like Luis is here in this conversation,
Mhm.
even though he has passed on last year. And I just want to say he was just such an amazing person. And what I have learned from him, because he was fighting until the last minute and supporting people until the last minute. And I'm actually trying to do what he was telling me. Just do what you want to do. Like fight for what you want to do. Because life is too short. And help people as much as you can, because that's what he did also. Like he was supporting people even the day before he died, the last minute phone calls and things like that. If somebody called him, he didn't really reject him unless he was like in chemotherapy or something like that, or couldn't talk because he was too sick. So I think being there for each other as humans, like how you are here today, you showed up, I showed up, all these people showed up to listen to us and have a conversation. I think that is also something very important that we can do each other and support each other, whatever it is, finding the job or just having a conversation or listening. Because in the life of what we have right now with the AI technology and all that, I think humanity more than ever needs to come together and say, this is what we want and this is what we do not want, you know? Um, and I feel really strongly about that, especially in writing, so because like your PhD, your work, what you put time and energy into, you put 9 years into yours, I put 6 years into mine, and ended up in a research and a dissertation and publishing. That is really in-depth, magical work. I mean, that is not something that AI could have made up, because you needed to talk to human beings, you needed to find out all these important things. So I just feel like um, there's this essential part to fight for each other and support each other as humans. Because even in the job, what you were saying, I'm getting a lot of rejections too, and I think it's because that AI scans my
Mhm.
resumes, and I actually started to do a little fight. And I write back to some of the companies only and say, I applied for this job and I get denied. I applied for this job and I get denied. And I would like an opportunity, because I feel like if I could actually talk to a human person, I might get an opportunity because I have the skills, you know, to
Mhm.
make any job works. I have, and if I don't have a specific experience, I can learn it, but because of this AI doing the scanning of us,
Mhm.
I think many, many humans are getting less opportunities. So I think it's important to support each other in the way how you are doing it with the coaching and supporting people and kind of tailoring the resumes and the speech and all those kind of things. So I really appreciate your feedback on that.
I mean, you can also email. Usually, most of them are no reply, which is they're sending you a generic
Yeah.
response. But you can also, because a couple of them I've gotten them from people, and I say, "Oh, I'm interested in knowing why I'm not being considered for an interview
Hmm.
and moving forward to the next step." A
Hmm.
lot of them will. Most of them won't respond because the people that are also in HR are very young people. And this was an issue that had come up many, about 20 years ago. This came up here in New York because at Macy's they were hiring very, very young females to work in the HR department to get jobs for people. And and most of the reason that they were doing that is because these were young women looking for their boyfriend and trying to get them the best, highest paying job, because we know how men and women view each other. We know psychologically and socially from a lot of the social research that men, women date men because of status and money and that whether they're going to be a good provider, and men date women because they want someone who's the hottest looking thing that'll make them look good when they're wherever they are. Hang, this really good looking woman is now with me. So this is what was going on in the HR here in New York City, because a lot of the stuff that happens here in New York, and this was happening, I saw this happening all over the place. I was pretty young at the time, and I said, "Oh, look at how young these HR females are hiring all these people. What do they know about the world of work?" They don't
Hmm.
know a lot. People have psychological insight and maybe some book knowledge or degree, but they don't have the insight necessarily and experience to know what it takes for a person to work in a particular job like that. So, but when you have a resume that's got all these things in it, try not to overfill the resume with too much stuff. Take stuff out rather than put stuff in. Because I know I've been to job fairs where you actually meet some of the people. And if you start to, I noticed this because I noticed I was doing this. You start telling them what you can do and just answer their question. Because if you overwhelm them, especially if they're much, much younger than you, they're going to say, oh, this is unconsciously, they see you as their nagging mother telling them, oh, buy my stuff because I'm here to tell you what I can do for you. And that's how a younger person perceives someone who's older in the work. They don't see you as someone who is necessarily a good fit. They see you as someone who is potentially too old and almost unconsciously nagging mother, or depending on how their relationship is with their mother, how they will find you. Because every relationship in the workplace mirrors, and this is a lot of the Bowen therapy work that gets done, mirrors a lot of what the relationship has been with you and your mother, your own parents. So when you're much older, this happens to be magnified. So you have to take it as a case by case basis. Less is more, 2-page max for the resume. If it's a job where you don't need to put your PhD in there, I sometimes leave it out. If I don't need to put it, because that distracts a lot of people. They don't give a damn that you have a doctorate. It's like, big deal. This is about selling. You know how to sell? Yeah, I do know how to sell. Can I show you how I can sell? Yes, I can show you what I can do. But so you leave a lot of stuff out. You don't have to put every single thing in. You remove things, because this is the work that Coach Cheryl Richardson also says. She did a lot of the original coaching work with Thomas Leonard, which was done in the 80s in large group awareness. She says a higher quality of life has more to do with what you remove from it than what you add from it. And I have to
I
catch
love that.
myself in doing that too, because I
And I
make,
think that's really good, not just for our resumes, but for our life in general and our surroundings. And I've been really trying to follow that with anything. If I need to buy something, I check, do you really need this book or this piece of clothing or whatever? And are you willing to give up at least two of something that you have in that same category? Either it's a book or a clothing or, whatever it is, to buy this thing. If not, then don't buy it. If
Mhm.
you are, and it's really important, then buy it and go to the 2 things or give it to a friend or regift it or whatever, something else that you have. Because if you crowd your life, just like as you were saying, crowding the resume, then there's no breath for anything new or anything fluid to let it in. So
Yes.
I really appreciate saying that, because I think and I think guilty of that too. You, I was taught when you're writing the resumes that you put everything down, that you have done. But as you were saying many times, and I started to do that recently, I don't put something down that's older than 10 years. I just put down the last few job experiences and my
Mhm.
education and things like that, and add some more relevant volunteer work or whatever else I've been doing to it as well. So I think, all those are great points. I have not then not yet not added my PhD to any resume, but I might try that and see what happens.
I mean, you have to edit your PhD to present that workshops. Um, you have to do a PowerPoint and then do your poster. And I've been doing a lot of workshops with my school. They have free workshops on how to present at conferences. It's not for
Mhm.
paid work, but when you present at conferences, what the results of your research were and what it is that you brought new into filling the gap in the literature. I also wanted to come back to something else that I noticed when I've done a lot of job fairs, and I haven't needed to do this in at least 3 years. But now, it's like 20 degrees here in New York and I'm at job and I have this black outfit that I'm wearing. And I never thought I would get such compliments from strangers. Oh, I love your outfit. You look really nice. Oh, you look great. I even had somebody tell me, you look like you're 28 years old. I said, I am no 28-year-old. But I was shocked that that person thought that. So I think that when you also go out there and maybe you can think, well, I'm going to go out there looking like I'm 30 and you're much older than 30. And if you see, I even got smiles from guys, too. I said, cause I'm so focused on my research the last year and on working. I didn't even look at going out with friends or going out, even out on a date or anything like that. I was so focused because that's what you need. You need that almost the
Yeah.
hyper
As you're
focus of
finishing your
immediate
research. Yeah. Makes sense.
finish your research because you need to stay that hyper
Yeah.
focus to get it finished.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that, yeah, getting back to what, coaching tip from her, a higher quality of life has more to do with what you remove than what you do add to it. And this is something that I think Lewis was very good at being an economist, our coach, our mutual friend.
Yes.
And I knew Lewis for about 30 years. He got me my first job when it was New Life Magazine, New Life Expo. I was a business development rep for that. And, I'm being a native New Yorker. He was a native New Yorker, but no, it's also your personality. I mean, if you're very good on the rebuttal, you do one of two things. You either become a crackerjack lawyer or you sell for a living. So I didn't become a lawyer. I became someone that had, multiple degrees in psychology. So, but Lewis was somebody that I learned a lot from regarding a lot of the coaching techniques that I use for my clients and for myself. I mean, you have to work on yourself and then also know where you make mistakes where, oh, I really learned from that. For
Yeah.
example, in this job fair that I went to, there were like 3,000 people. We were all standing up. We were standing for like 4 hours, sitting there going, oh, thank goodness I can still do this, right? Because I remember I used to stand for 4 hours and go into every building in Midtown Manhattan when I was in the sales force a long time ago. So, and I would just talk to everybody and, it's part of who I am, but not everybody does this. I just reach my hand out and I shake it. My name's Catherine Sidoti. I'm interviewing I'm very direct and get to the point. And then I go into my elevator speech very fast. Some of them depends on the job. A lot of them were social service type jobs. They weren't a lot of business jobs. In a business environment that works. In a social service environment that doesn't work. And so you have to know when you're moving in different domains. For academia, certain things work, other things don't. And I'm also sending my resume out for academia. Um, and I know I have actually a cousin who is a PhD psychologist at one of the universities in New Jersey. And I said, oh, this is not somebody that I think I could connect with, but I'm thinking maybe I should anyway because she's a cousin. She's
Now,
someone
why not?
blood relation. She's already a PhD. She's also written books. She's a clinical psychologist, but they were
Mhm.
looking at that point for an IO psychologist. But I said, I listened to someone else, a family member said, that person's never going to help you. And I just put my resume through. So sometimes you have to listen to yourself and just
Yeah.
try and experiment with different things, especially if you do a multitude of things. If you're a very artsy and if you're really, um, if you have a lot of ideas, I'm one of those people that has a PhD in psychology, but I don't like assessment tests because I
Mhm.
think, especially, I don't like to do the satisfaction surveys
Mhm.
because I think that people lie on I know that when I start seeing so many things I have to do on a Likert scale, 1 for extremely satisfied, 2 for somewhat I think, oh, and now I have to think through. I just fill it out very fast because I want to get it over and done with. It's like, oh boy, this is something I have to fill out. I don't think people are very honest in doing that. So I know that there's a
I think you're right. Most people, I think,
yeah,
just
high
wanna
level of thorough.
get rid of it and might not
Yeah.
pay as close attention. I try to do them, especially if it's related to education.
Oh
I
yeah,
try
yeah.
to do the feedback, like, was this helpful or not helpful, especially if education was just kind of like directed one way. I want to give the feedback that, maybe more interaction or more visual or more discussion would have been helpful or something like that. So I try to give good feedback in those things, but many times the general customer survey thing, Yeah, I agree. Probably most people are not really
It's
interested in. Yeah.
I mean, it depends on, how dazzled you were if you purchase something or, if
Yeah.
you're doing marketing. But I noticed if it's a major if you've had a major diagnosis of something and they're trying to find out whether the doctor or the nursing staff treated you appropriately. I mean, I've done some of those where I've actually had to give the hospital a piece of my mind. Um, so and I mean, but getting back to the job situation, as I'm a
Yes.
work um psychological researcher, I think that everything you have to do your own experiment, essentially.
Yes.
And so when you go to if you're lucky enough to go to job fairs, have copies of your resume and bring business cards and just talk to as many people as possible. I actually started talking to someone at a job. I'll give you another example. He's also getting his PhD, and he said to me, send me over your resume. I said, can I hand it to you? He said, no, email it to you. So and he said, when the new semester comes, I think you might teach a class here, I think. I said, I think it's a good idea. And he's one of the people that he forwarded my resume to 3 other people.
Oh,
So
nice.
so that's something I'm waiting on now too, because the semester just started and they're gonna probably because the new semester just started here in New York. This was at a university, and that was where the job fair was, at a university. And here there are a lot of government jobs. So I thought, government job. Some people that works for them. I mean, I think as you get older, you might be interested, especially if you have student loans, you might want to just offset them because there's loan forgiveness after a certain amount of time that you work in a particular kind of job. So, you can offset those student loans. But in terms of the world of work, there's so many opportunities out there. And I think as you get older, I think that a lot of people don't realize that they actually already have jobs that they can create for themselves. Especially if you're a salesperson, because you can sell just about anything. If you have a psychological background, it's all about human beings, knowing your product, knowing the competition, knowing how to handle objections, and then learning enough about the subtlety of the product you're selling or the service you're selling and being able to do it. Because I've sold things that I had no interest in also, but I sold them anyway, because I just know how to work with people. And it's the same questions in a different application, and it's learning the products. Some products are harder than others to learn, but when you do learn them, you find interest in, oh, and that's why blah blah, all those things come into play. Being a little general now. So I'm not sure where you want to go, if you want to continue talking about work or Lewis, or um I
I
thought I was
think
being interviewed, but I didn't even know there were going to be people on this Substack interview. I thought it was going to be just
surprise.
I didn't no idea. I mean, um, you know,
I love when the conversation just goes, and I think we talked a lot about a lot of different things today. If anybody in the audience have a specific question for Catherine or myself, please ask. I think we did talk just a little bit before about like I'm a writer. You did your writing through PhD, but then you were also mentioning that you wrote some poetry, and I would love for that,
oh,
to
yeah.
go toward that direction because I love writing, I love poetry, I love that creativity. So, and I just actually noticed that picture behind you. Um, my grandma had the same picture that you have
Yeah, that's Botticelli's Birth of Venus. Yeah, I
on the
mean,
wall. Yeah, and I
yeah.
kind of grew up with that because every time we visited family, that picture was there. And my grandma passed now, and I don't know what happened to that picture, but it's just it is kind of like so comforting to see that picture behind you because I'm so used to seeing it when I
Mhm.
was growing up. And Ore is saying something in a different language that I don't speak, so
Oh,
I'm not sure
I don't know. Well, this
what you're saying, but I think if I would just love to, since you talked a lot about a lot of energy to
mhm.
jobs and all those things, to
Well,
kind of talk about something light as we're finishing up, maybe some poetry, art, creativity. So yeah,
well, I'll tell you, grew up studying piano. My piano teacher was a colleague of Michelangelo, who was a very famous pianist in Italy. He was one of the top pianists, and he was very good as a pianist because he really very rarely made any mistakes. And in classical piano, the goal is not to make any mistakes. So I grew up
Mhm.
as a pianist. My piano teacher was very, very mean, and I decided not to go into piano, but I always considered myself someone in the arts, an artsy fartsy type of person. And I always consider myself an entrepreneur. That's actually what I would call myself. Oh, I'm an artist entrepreneur. When I graduated college, I was considered the class poet and I would write a lot of poetry. And when I went into the world of work, I studied theater. And that's how I first started. I went to the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues was Anthony Hopkins' daughter. She was in my theater class, and I worked with a couple of people that are now famous in Hollywood when I was at Lee Strasberg Theater Institute. I also studied classical voice because I studied classical piano as a child. And then I studied with quite a number of teachers. I had teachers that it was so expensive to study music. And then I started working in the music business as an assistant to a couple of music agents.
Mhm.
And they worked with some very, very famous people, including people that would do voiceovers. And then after that, I mean, I just started working in advertising. That's how I got my first job selling advertising because it's a creative field and my degree was in psychology and I started to sell advertising. I just knew how to spin everything I was doing. Um, I guess if I had to say what one of my gifts I've always had the gift of gab kind of thing. So I got myself into advertising and I still wanted to work in music and I started creating my own concerts. So all
I
my
love
concerts had a theme. So I did a concert called The Art of Seduction. So it was all on all the famous seduction scenes of classical music, and it was really opera, and I would pay for everything using all my own money in, advertising, and then, I did concert on seduction, all the themes of seduction, because there's more than one way to be seduced. It's not just being sexually seduced. You can be seduced into a new job. You can be seduced into a new business venture. You can be seduced to even killing somebody. There's all so many ways of seducing someone. And these are some of the themes in the operatic genre. And since I know a good bit about music, and I was able to do that, and I was also painting and drawing at the time, so I'd use some of my own drawings and sketches, and I would
Oh,
put them
great.
in things, and I would write some of my. I didn't do any of the writing of the opera because that comes from all the masters. Opera is a
Yes.
very standardized form of music, and I was just getting a lot of opera singers asking me, well, can you help me market because you're very ethical and you're helping us? Because at the time
Mhm.
I had a videotape. I would videotape all my concerts and I'd bring them to all the artist managers in New York City. And I remember one artist manager, this happened to be Luciano Pavarotti's artist manager, because I knew how to get myself into all the buildings. At that time, you were able to go into buildings in New York. You
Mhm.
can't do that anymore right now. So I'd go in there and I said, oh, here's my videotape. I run showcase concerts for management purposes for people to get work. Here's my videotape. And if there are any artists in there that you're interested in auditioning, please let me know. I'll facilitate an audition. I'll get a pianist in here and we can do the audition. Is there
Nice.
anybody? And they would ask me, is there anybody in there who's famous? And I would say, no. If they were famous, why would they be looking for a professional manager?
Oh, yeah.
So they
Good
said to me,
point.
they said, "To tell you the truth, Catherine," they said this to me, "Tell you the truth, Catherine, we don't wanna work that hard." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I sell for a living. I know how hard the work is to sell. You have to put your everything into."
Mhm.
We don't, because of course they were managing Pavarotti, and he had a very, very big career. When Herbert Breslin was managing his career, he was on the launching the book, and Herbert Breslin became very famous as his as artist manager. I knew all these people, music business, and I was turned off. So that's when a lot of artists asked me if I could manage their careers, and I said, "Oh, you want me to manage crazy opera singer and people in the theater field?" Took me 2 years. I thought about it, and I finally started doing it, and I
Oh,
was getting
really?
yes. So I would run auditions, and I had several 4 or 5 pianists I would work with. and I would just do the artist management. That's why I told you when I had my own business, I worked with a conductor who wanted to hire one of my singers. So it's so hard to make money in that business because 1/10 of 1%, it's like, it's, and let me just put it to you this way. It's harder to manage people in classical music than it is to get a PhD because at least 2 to 3% of the population is a PhD. One
Wow.
tenth, 1/10 of 1% of the people listens to classical music. There happen to be very, very rich people who do listen to it. So
I
that's,
do I do have to put in a plug-in for classical music because I am just gonna say that classical music has saved my life
oh,
last year because I had a fall and I had a traumatic brain injury. And after that, one of the things to do is I was evaluated for music therapy to rewire my brain.
mm,
So
right.
people like Mozart, Vivaldi, and Bartok, what they do is that they take their classical music and they modulate it to match your brain wave and chemistry. And when I started my music therapy, I was listening to it twice a day. You had to listen to it for 30 minutes, no longer, and you had to do a specific task doing that. And some of the music sounds were actually painful, like literally painful to my brain. But it saved my life because it literally helped rewire my brain. And I am able to do functions that I was not able to do after the brain injury. And I have to put in my love for classical music for that. I mean, I always loved that, but it's not something that I continuously listen to it. Now I just love it even more because I feel like it really helped me become who I am today because I wouldn't be here if the classical music and the modulated music would not exist. And the other thing is like, I mean, I love that you have done the arts before. It's not something I know about you. So, and
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, I don't,
curious.
it's my early, I mean, that's who I consider myself to be.
Yeah,
Right? And so I will say though, Duke Bluebeard's Castle of Bela Bartok is very different from Mozart, Le Nozze di Figaro. They're two very different
of
pieces,
course,
with
of
two
course.
very
Yeah.
different outputs. But yeah, that's who I am essentially more than probably anything before. And I would always consider myself, I'm an artist and an entrepreneur. So when I did manage people, I would see everything in my life as art. Even, and
Mhm.
that's something that I actually learned through Louise Hay's work too, is see your life as a work of art. If you see your life as a work of
I
art
love that.
and then you replicate it every day, that's the mathematics. And there's math, and the music and math go together because music is sound and time. You will live a very whole life if you do that.
Hmm.
That's part of my own philosophy. So, um, I would do a lot of that as a younger person. So I know that you're very much into poetry, and I'm actually,
Yes.
um, I've started to write again some of my own, but I've been writing for a very long time. But I'm starting to write some of my own poetry, and I enjoy it. But sometimes when you look at it and you read it and you judge it and you go, "That's not so good."
Don't judge it. Don't judge it. Just do it. But just whatever feels
Yeah,
right. I always tell people that
yeah,
a poetry doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to be anything specific. What
yeah.
comes out is what meant to come out. And I know that there's some people who go back and correct everything. I don't. I really rarely go back and correct anything, because it's just meant to be the way it is. And some of
Yeah.
the poems going to be better. The other one's going to be okay, and some of them going to become a song, and some of them are just for you, and some of them is for maybe just for another person, and some is going to be for the whole world. And you get to decide that. But I think anything that somebody writes down with the intent of creating a poem or creating a writing piece, it just brings more joy and positivity to this world. So I'm just super excited and I can't
Yeah,
wait. You
I'm
want to
writing it.
share any of your poetry? I'm
I
very
didn't wanna
excited.
write it. Let me tell you, Gabby, after the dissertation, I said, "I do not wanna write for another 6." I just don't. I am
Yeah.
so tired. I mean, it's not only it's the editing and the repetition,
Yes.
the
Yes.
writing,
Yes. Yes.
that I found. I mean, it's necessary, but I found that a little bit boring, but I
Hmm.
mean, to me, my favorite art form is classical music. And chamber
Right.
music is my favorite. I mean, it's something that I find when the instruments are talking to each other, I actually get a visual of what the
Yes.
instrument is doing.
Yes.
And Hans Zimmer is the famous, or even John Williams, who writes all the music for the movies. And that's what they do. Yeah. Okay.
So I just went to this. I was really fortunate that my writer friend, and you also met her, Gabriella in Tatar. She lives here in Hungary, and she invited me to this French romantic aria evening that also had an orchestra. And I had exactly the same experience, what you were saying. So I was listening to some of the orchestra and I
Mhm.
saw visual
Yeah.
pictures. Like I closed my eyes and I saw events happening uh,
Yes.
that just were happening without the words. And I was just like so much taken away that I started to cry. And it was so beautiful. And it was also so amazing because this person, Julian Henry, it was his
Mhm.
first time to ever be in front of an audience and
Oh,
singing
really?
these arias. And they were all beautiful, romantic. And even though I didn't, I mean, I know a little bit of French and I'm learning, but I
Mhm.
didn't, and with an aria, it could be difficult to
Mhm.
know the words. They were also writing out some of them and translating, but
Mhm.
it was just so beautiful. The joy on his face, and he was so pure and beautiful, kind of nice voice. And yeah, it was so elevating to be in the room and hearing the orchestra and hearing these gentle arias,
Mhm.
from this young man. It was so magical, truly. So I can understand why the classical music is your love.
And,
Absolutely.
it's like it's different. I mean, French music is very different. I mean, because the culture of the composer very much defines the music. So,
Hmm.
I mean, most opera is usually in Italian and German and some French. There are some American operas now that are being created, and of course there's Russian. But then, I mean, a lot of people, unless you're in classical music, a lot of people don't know a lot about it. So, if you tell them what's the difference between a concerto and uh, a sonata, they're not going to know unless they really learn about classical music. It's complex and it's got many layers to it. And they're not going to know what chamber music is compared to, for how many instruments. It is complicated. And then there's just songs, and then there's, of course, operas, and there's operetta,
Yes.
and it's complicated to study in itself too. So, and then there's something I want to bring up, that there's something that said that what I study in private is what I get rewarded for in public. And
Hmm.
it's no more than if you're a pianist or any instrumentalist or even a singer. I mean, although a singer can't practice 12 hours a day the way a pianist or instrumentalist can. But when you're sitting down there and you're very isolated for such a long period of time, mastering your craft, that's what's necessary for you to become a virtuoso of your instrument. So, and that's something that I learned as a music agent. But now that I have 3 degrees in psychology, I understand that even more. Why that's
Hmm.
so necessary for them to really do, and why their personalities are. Because I had a lot of people on the spectrum when I was as a music agent, uh,
Yeah,
and
I would imagine.
yeah, there were a lot of, especially the instrumentalists, not the singers, very rarely, but the instrumentalists were on the spectrum. Several of them, violinist and pianist, mostly was what I managed. So, but that getting back to artistry and something that I said, I think that if every person lives their life as if it was their work of art during the day and saw them, this is the work that Joe Dispenza does, Dr. Joe Dispenza, where he
Yes.
talks about creating your day. Now, we all creators. We are all creating. The
Yes.
question is, are you consciously creating your day or just going through the movements and distracted by, I've got to text this person, I want to watch that social media podcast, I want to listen to the news because I know that's going on here and that's going on there. And I think we all get sucked into all of that instead of saying, I will consciously create my day
Hmm.
for my betterment, and whatever gifts I have, because I'm working on my own gifts, I bring that to other people, and that's the gift to them. And if
Yes.
everybody does that, we create a better world that way. I know I don't mean to sound Pollyanna about this in any way.
No, no, no. I totally feel 100% the same way. And like the visual about that, what I have always seen, like let's say the last 10 or 15 years, is that you can change the color of the water. Like you have this, I would imagine this whole ocean, and the one drop of positivity that I put into it, or my friend or you put into it, it seems so small. But the more of us putting in those drops of water, slowly the color of the water will have to change. You cannot keep putting in this color and it kept have disappearing, because there's so much magic in it when we all come together and do something. If you keep doing positive and supportive things for humanity, for each other, it does matter. And it matters for our vibration, for our being, how we look at the world, how other people look at us. And yeah, I think it's truly magical when these things happen. And even it matters what type of music you listen to. I think it does matter. And
Yeah.
because other people hear it and they might become curious about it. And, you know, music have a vibration and an energy too. So like I never listened to something that's heavy metal and just like this angry music. I like
Oh,
to
but that
listen.
helps you. Heavy metal does help you get through some very negative emotions.
But it's not helpful for me. Maybe it's
No, it's
helpful
not
for other
helpful,
people.
then I wouldn't listen to it, but, I mean,
Yeah.
I've lis I like all different kinds of music.
Uh-huh.
So I've listened to all, but I do use music therapeutically, but then I use music, because I had to learn a lot about music for when I was a music agent,
Yeah.
I had to know what sounds good. So if you're playing, um, Prokofiev's, Piano Sonata Number 7, I need to know what each movement sounds like, and need to hear several different versions of it. I need to look at the sheet music to if I'm auditioning somebody for that piece, I need to know what mistakes are being made, because classical music is about getting close to the sheet music in perfection as possible. So it was very different but in terms of enjoying the music, you can enjoy the music even if they make mistakes. But if you hear the
Yeah.
piece enough times, you'll know, oh, that system was wrong, or that section was, oh, now he didn't transfer the next key in time. Um, or I mean, the more you're involved in music, it's really a lifetime study. And like I said, it's
Yeah.
harder to be good at that kind of music than to even get a PhD. And I'm telling you, it is that difficult. Um, and there's only a small, but it doesn't mean you can't enjoy the music. So there's
Absolutely.
other,
Absolutely.
but if you
And I think it's the same going back to the poetry.
yeah,
Even if you feel
yeah,
like there's mistakes in it, they meant to be that way. It's, and many times as a writer, you might notice a mistake, but the person who reads it, they just think it meant to be that way. And they don't, they might not notice it. And sometimes purposefully,
mhm.
I leave something that way because I'm like, well, that means I'm human and I know I could
Yes.
improve that, but I just like the way how it is. And I actually really don't like it when Grammarly or AI wants to correct me that, oh, you should write it this way. No, that's not the way I want to write it. I want to write it this. I want to write it my way.
I understood. I'm actually going to give you something to listen to. That is
Okay.
heavy metal. It's Steve Vai. He wrote For the Love of God. It's a piece of music. He's actually first he was trained classically, because a lot of people in heavy metal to play guitar that way. They do train, a lot of them train at Berklee College of Music and all that. And what he says is, he says, I'm a work in progress. And I think that's one of the best ways for people to call them. I know you seem like you're getting tired. It's like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in
Well,
Hungary.
yeah, sorry. It's
Yeah,
almost like,
yeah. I'm
yeah,
aware of that, that it's very late there. But I
it's
mean,
10:39 at night. So sorry,
it's
but I am getting a little tired,
by
but
it's
I
called
also love our conversation.
it's called For the Love of God. I think you'll like his piece of music, especially when it gets
Yeah.
into
And I'm
extravagance.
sorry, I didn't meant to like totally generalize, but I meant to the kind of music that's kind of just like really angry and pounding,
Well,
but doesn't seem to have
there is
like
some
the,
like that.
a musical
Well,
expression.
there's very good music in every genre, and then there's
Yeah.
music that's not as good. Let's leave it at that. So, I mean, I think, like when you said Bela Bartok, I mean, if you listen to the Duke Bluebeard's Castle, The Seventh Door, it's one of the most scariest pieces of classical music ever written, so, I mean, he was a great Hungarian composer. One of my
Yeah.
favorite I love his music,
But
but
I
I
think that's the same true for many people. Like even a piece of writing can be
yeah,
very scary and unattractive.
yeah,
And that same writer might write a piece that everybody loves. And but we can all learn from different type of things. So um I prefer to send positivity out to the world because I feel like there's
good,
so much negativity there's already. So if there's a music that continuously talk about hatred or killing or racism or any that kind of things that
right,
like judgments toward other people or things like that, I prefer not to listen to those type of things because I prefer to
mhm,
listen to something that's more uplifting because I feel like there's enough noise and hatred already out there. So just my
mhm.
preference.
I understand, but one thing that unfortunately we do have to understand this, and this is not something that a lot of people want. For example, one of my relatives just became a vegan because she saw something about animals killing each other in the wild for food. Well, it's a sacrifice, unfortunately. In order for another species to exist, the other species has to be consumed by the predator. And sometimes predator becomes prey. So it's also this thinking about, we can get into a lot of the philosophical aspects of this. And yet, although we do not want to stay in an looming negativity, which is what's going on in the news and all the different things going on
Yeah,
the planet, we have to come to terms with, sometimes we do have to accept that there
yeah,
is this negativity, because without it, we could not contrast it with the good.
absolutely.
And
But we
that's
can
where the struggle
choose.
comes in. That's where the
I
struggle.
agree with that, but we can choose what we put out in the world,
Yeah, but we can,
what
yes,
we consume.
right.
Yeah,
So, when I did produce my concerts were theme oriented, and I
yeah,
did that because I thought it was, since classical music is so perceived unattractively by the masses, a lot of people don't like it. I said, well, maybe if they had a theme, all the pieces where, basically that it's going to be about love, or it's going to be about being seduced, or it's just going to be a friendly night at the opera kind of thing. So this
yeah,
way you get an understand, and that would make it more mean, because I was looking at the advertising aspect of it, how to market that. And we got a lot of people. Um Again, it's not like the art form is, but when you are writing, and I do like to read a lot of people's work too, I mean, Ulysses, of James Joyce, and just some really interest. I used to love Edgar Allan Poe because it rhymes and it's very, sing song, you can sing it. Um, but I think when it comes to writing, I think it's about catharsis. It's so closely aligned to being a psychotherapeutic process,
it
because
is. Yeah.
I mean, it is such a psychotherapeutic process, dealing with your own, it's stream of consciousness. It's
Mhm.
dealing with, perhaps reflecting back on the past, or dwelling on it, or coming to terms with it, and then just looking into it as the present moment, or foreboding for the future. What will my future plan be? Where will this journey take me, that I'm now working on, looking towards future consciousness. So I think writing is very creative, very, very creative. It's also very complex. And I know that when I was working on my PhD, getting back to that story, I found it, the discipline of having to write for dissertation is very different from the discipline required to write a piece of poetry.
Yes.
It's so different. It's just a different type of writing. And
Yes.
I mean, when you're writing poetry, you're just writing,
It's a
tell a
creative
story of my,
writing.
it's free. But
It's a creative. Yeah. Instead of an academic focus.
it's
Yeah.
not I mean, to think of, like, when you have to write the chapter 2 of your dissertation, where you have to write all of the different journal articles, the literature review of what you're that comes straight out of literature, and you have to write down and paraphrase so as not to plagiarize anything somebody's writing. That's you can't twist it around and turn it around so that you completely distort what the author is saying. You have to give credit to that. But then when you're writing your own and you think, did I hear this line from somebody else? Did someone else write this thing? How was it written? Because, you read the poetry of Emily Dickinson, or you read the poetry of Walt Whitman, and you'll read your own stuff. Or I like to read a lot of Rumi, who was a very big Sufi poet. And I love it because his was like one or two lines about something that was really important. Like he would say, I'm tired of copies. Blind me with you. I'm tired of people trying to copy other people.
Yes.
What's unique about you? Tell me what's unique about you. So I find writing very, very challenging and difficult. Personally, for me, I know a lot of people that like to write and love to write. And I don't know if you wrote that piece for me when I was responding to you when we were texting. Did you write that? That what you spoke to? Or you texted me? Yes.
I received that from a friend and I was sharing it because I just felt like that was a really nice piece of
Oh, that was
um,
very nice. I mean,
yeah. But I wrote like similar stuff like
wow.
that. And I just see that Gabriella Taha, one of our writers and editors and also a friend, joined. So
Yeah.
uh,
I mean,
Gabi, let me know if you want to join, actually come to the platform and join the conversation. I think we're going to wrap up in just a little bit, but right now we are talking about writing and creativity and art forms. So if you want to jump in, let me know and I'm happy to invite you. But I think that creativity in itself is just such a beautiful thing to add to the world. So I'm really excited that you started to write poetry again and you have this passion and love for music. Do you play any instruments
I
or?
studied piano and flute for about 10
Oh,
years. I
nice. Oh
did,
my
but
goodness.
I dropped it because I figured, "Oh, I to really get good at this in classical you have to really 4 or 5 hours a day. I don't wanna spend this kind of time. Maybe when I'm older, I'll get back to when I have more time, but I wanna stay focused and become an expert in one area." But I do sing. That I pick up very quickly because I can read the sheet music, um and I like to do that because singing is very therapeutic.
I
So,
agree. Do you
um
have like something favorite that you love to sing?
well, I like to sing a lot of German songs,
Oh, okay.
from the Schubert Lieder, the Schumann Lieder, anything from Richard Strauss, all of that stuff I like to sing. Um,
That is so amazing. Do
so
you by any chance feel like singing to us today? Not to put you on the spot, but
oh my god, I haven't
if you want to, I would love
no, of
that.
course there is I mean, I'm just somebody that likes to sing when I have a chance to sing.
I do the same thing. I just like to sing when I have a chance.
Mhm.
We can sing together.
I
But
mean,
if you feel like it, I would love
you have to
to.
warm up I mean, you have to warm up and things like that. I mean, where I actually do sing, and that's one of the reasons why I go to church, is I sing in church. So,
Okay.
that's where I sing, so it'll be anything. I don't know, I feel a little self-conscious. I didn't think I would just I didn't even know there were gonna be other people in our meeting. I thought this was an interview, just as an interview about getting a PhD or work. I didn't know it was gonna be about all these things. So,
Just if you feel like it, there's no
um,
pressure. There's other lives we did when people sing or play something or just, I mean, it came up. So, but don't feel pressured.
uh,
But I would love to hear if you feel up to it. Yeah.
oh, I can't even think of what I would sing right now. My mind is because because I know what it's like to sing well, and I know what it's like to make a mistake because I was in the business for about 10 years. So, and I just really sing for fun. So,
So just for your reference, I was always told as a child not to sing, even as an adult. Even recently, somebody told me not to sing because I don't have a good voice, but I sing anyway. And I
yeah,
sang in front of YouTube and other people, and I don't
yeah,
care because I love to sing. And but it took me a long time to
yeah,
actually get there to be able to have that voice that and not to care what other people think,
mhm,
just sing for the joy of it. I even wrote some of my songs and sing some of my poetry. And
yeah.
it might not be a perfect pitch,
Mhm.
but it makes me feel good. And there were people who said they loved my voice. So it's like, I
I
never
get
trained, I never did anything. But for so long, it felt so wrong not to be able to sing because people said I don't have a good voice. Because we don't necessarily have to sing
Mhm.
for a good voice, just sing for the joy of it. But if you have a gift of a good voice, of
Mhm.
course, that's even like 100 times better.
I mean, no, when I mean, I've been told in church I have a good voice. If I sing with professional people, I'm not told that because it depends on the context that you're singing in.
Yeah.
If I have family members who are professional musicians or trained with professional people, so they'll, tell me. But, to do your own thing, I'm I mean, I guess I could sing the beginning of an Aaron Copland song called Long Time Ago. It's a really beautiful song. Aaron Copland was an American composer, and the song, I'll just sing a little bit of it, see if I can even get any voice out because I've had a bit of a sore. It's been like 17 degrees outside here. And I've had to go outside. Let's see if I have any voice left. 'Cause I'm talking so much over here. So let me just grab some water.
Absolutely. Take your time.
Mm. And then people say, "Oh, you sound so." Oh, they don't say anything. Oh, thank you very much. It was very nice. I'm over all of this. I'm too old for this. But anyway, it goes. On the liquid droop the willow long time ago, with a bathroom back the willow long time ago. Dwelt a maid beloved and cherished long time ago. Eagerly the blue eyes perished long time ago.
Oh
Anyway,
my God. I love that. That's so beautiful.
analyze my own singing because I was in the business for so long. But I dropped the breath a little bit because the most important things in singing are breathing and placement. Placement has to be here and breathing. And I'm sitting down in my chair and I'm not breathing that well right now. I haven't had
I
good.
would have not known. I mean, you're in the industry, so you might know that. I
Yeah,
would have
those are the
not known.
problems with my singing. I mean, but otherwise it was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 5. So
Now,
10 being the best. So
I'm just gonna say you are very judgmental against your own singing. I love that. I think it was beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing that. And I
you're
think
I'll
that's a
remember.
beautiful.
A
Yes.
composer does most of the work for us. I mean, unless we're writing our own music, but the composer is what we're in classical music, at least, is what we're paying the homage to, is
Hmm.
to create the work that the composer originally meant. I mean, and it's a really great piece of music. You should listen to Marilyn Horne sing it. She sings it the best, most proud. She's a very famous dramatic mezzo soprano. You should also look up her background. It's a very interesting life she's led. That she sings it the best. And I'm not trying to copy her in any way, shape, or form, but I think singing is very therapeutic, like writing. A lot the arts are
Yeah.
very therapeutic for all of us. And I always encourage that. So I mean, even if you're working with people as a nurse, you can work with write your feelings, write your emotions, sing your emotions, paint your emotions. Um and those things can be very useful as a workshop, even for moving someone to working in the area of work. For example, there are some people who do drumming in work environments
Yes.
because drumming is a collaborative. So if you're on a team and you're trying to initiate or you're trying to increase very high performance teams, if you can carry a beat and you can beat with the other people in rhythm, you can maybe transfer that skill, which is a percussive instrument, and move it into the area of work. So
Hmm.
that's where
That's
that
good.
actually can work. You can extrapolate it into the world of work. I guess I'm tying everything into what I do as IO psychology individual researcher into that. So,
So I think that was beautiful. I think that's a beautiful ending to our conversation. We are running close to 2 hours, but you
yes.
earlier mentioned about the 2-minute elevators page. And I just thought that might be a perfect closure if you want to share yours for those who are going to be listening later, if you want.
Okay. So I would say, hi, my name is Catherine Jones Sidoti. I have a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, the psychology of the workforce, and I help individuals increase their performance through high level coaching and consulting in any form of organization. How can I help you?
I love that. That was so beautiful. And thank you so
It
much
gets
for,
to the point. You can
yeah,
change it, you can move the words around.
of course.
I
Of
think
course.
if you're in an environment where you work with financial people, you can say, I help financial organizations increase high performance team or individual performance through coaching and consulting in the financial or wherever. It's in the broadcast area. I've worked in about 25 different industries, so I plug in the industry, the sports performance area. So now today's the Super Bowl. So it's like I'm thinking sports tonight. You know, the Super Bowl is the most watched program. So what I watch for is the advertisement. I want to see who's advertising more than anybody at the
Mhm.
Super Bowl.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for all the points. And,
Thank you. I
I
hope it's
think,
helpful to people.
yeah, I think we can have many, many more of these conversation and not run out of any of topics because of your wealth of experience. And I hope that maybe somebody who's seeing this just says, that's the person I want to work with.
Well, that
And
would be nice if
that would
that's
be nice. I mean, you never know. That's why we are also doing this, right? To support
yeah,
each other.
sure.
So
I'm
I
happy
am
to help.
very grateful for you for being here
Thank
today
you.
and looking forward for future collaborations and working together.
Yes.
And thank you so much for coming. And thank you for all of you who joined us today.
Yes.
And later we will post this um, video on Substack as well as on my YouTube channel. And same for Catherine as well. And may your night or day be joyful wherever you are. And thank you for being
Yes.
here.
Thank you so much.
Have a
I'm
good
glad
day,
we made
everybody.
this happen. Thank you so much. I'm glad we made this happen. So thank you very much, Dr. Kőrösi. I look forward to seeing you in sometime, in New York. If you're ever in New York, come go to dinner.
Sounds great. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.